I think it woke up something in me that I already knew to be true. And it was like giving me permission to go with already what was deep within and a part of who I was. I just wasn't acquainted with that part of myself yet.
As a vegan, do you ever feel like you're living in a parallel universe, aware of things that many others don't even seem to notice, let alone acknowledge? I'm Chrissy Benson, host of the Vegan Posse podcast. We talk with vegans from around the globe who, like you, are living lives of integrity and compassion with an eye toward justice. Through their personal stories, you'll come to see that you're not an outlier. In fact, you're part of an entire posse of individuals who aren't just keeping the peace, they're creating it through their food choices and beyond. You won't be saddling up, but you're in for the ride of your life. Welcome to the Vegan Posse. Hey, Posse. I'm your host, Chrissy Benson. I love talking to vegans from all around the globe, but just as wonderful, if not more so, is discovering the amazing vegans I'm surrounded by here in Nashville, Tennessee. A few months ago, my path crossed with that of Hayden Blane, a Nashville native who went off to Hollywood to act in movies and TV. Hayden went vegan in 2007 while living in LA, where she lived until her heart called her home to Tennessee in 2014. Hayden is now a wife, and she's also the mother of a 4.5-year-old boy named Bowie. I got to talk to her about the deeply personal ins and outs of her vegan journey, from dating and relationships to motherhood and parenting her own inner child. So enjoy this conversation with Hayden Blane. Hayden, welcome to the Vegan Posse. Are you ready for the ride of your life?
I am.
Nice. No hesitation. So on this show, I've had the chance to interview vegans from around the globe, but I especially love connecting with vegans in my own backyard right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And you are one of them. And you also happen to be an ultra glamorous actor in both television and film.
Oh,
And you lived in LA for a long time, but now you're back. So you've been vegan for a long, long time, but I'd love to go back to your early days as a kid growing up here in Nashville. How did your family eat growing up? And did you ever think about the animals in our food system?
Okay, so very southern, a lot of casseroles, a lot of cream ofs, cream of chicken, cream of mushroom, all the cream ofs, just the cans, a lot of little Debbie's. It is, I've often said it is shocking that I wasn't like a morbidly obese child because of all the junk that I put in my body. But I was always very active, riding my bike, climbing trees, loved nature, loved being outside. Um, no, I didn't. Like I know there was some curiosity. It was like a sadness that as a child that you think about, like, like you read books as a child about farm animals and you go and you visit like on field trips, but it was like some sort of we're not going there when it came to the reality of what was happening. It's like, don't think about it. We're not going to ask those questions. That's like, this is part of the food chain, you know?
Right. This is just how
So
it is. And of course,
yes.
we're discouraged from going there. We're taught, whether it's explicitly or implicitly, not to go there. And yeah, the dichotomy is just so funny too, because we read books like Charlotte's Web and books about horses, and we have all these just strong feelings of love and affection for animals, and yet when it comes to food, yeah, we're just not supposed to ask.
Yeah.
So what about animals in general? Did you grow up just having a natural affinity for animals?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up with dogs. My mom was allergic to cats, although I did sneak a cat into my little playhouse for like, it felt like it was 2 months. It probably was less than. And then I finally came clean and was like, this cat needs an actual home. It can't live out in the playhouse. My babysitter would like help me get food for the cat and cat litter and all the things. I named him Cinnamon. Yeah, I grew up loving animals. Just, I mean, you can't deny like what you feel around a horse as a child, like looking into their eyes and just even like I grew up riding a little bit like at camp and just being around an animal like that, like you feel something, you know? And the men in my immediate family, father and stepfather, were never hunters. You know, my stepdad would always say the only way I shoot an animal is with a camera. Um, so I'm thankful there wasn't that. Because like I'll never forget. I don't know how old I was. I know I might be jumping ahead, but this is just what's coming up in my mind. I don't know how old I was when the movie Powder came out, but
I
there
don't
was
know
this
that
movie
movie.
Powder. Oh my gosh, it's this guy. I don't even remember who the actor. I know he's like a big name now, but he had alopecia and he was albino and like he was in high school, and I know Jeff Goldblum was like the teacher, and like a lot of the kids made fun of this guy, and he had like magical powers, but not like in a Harry Potter sense. But there was this scene in the movie, and I'll probably get emotional, but where this hunter shot a deer, and Powder, this that was the name of this kid because of the color of his skin. He was like a teenager. He stopped, like he went to the deer and he put his hand on the deer who had been shot, and he put his hand on the hunter, and he like made him feel what that animal was feeling. And I'll never forget that. And it was so powerful to see that done on screen and to know like that is the truth. That is the truth. Like the fear and the pain that this beloved deer feels is real. And why would anybody do this? I don't care about overpopulation. Like, no, no. And like, and you know, especially in the South, people are like, well, that's God wouldn't have put animals on this planet. It's like, really? You
Right,
know, like
right,
they're the wise creatures here. They they are the teachers.
right, right. Yeah,
So
no,
you
I
got
mean
to see the movie. Yeah.
it sounds, yeah, no, that it's amazing the images and the scenes that stay with us where just the light goes off and we just can never not know what's revealed to us in the moment. But so when did you actually make the leap to, you know, this deep love and empathy for animals to going vegan yourself? What was it that opened your eyes?
So I was in LA, and this was like February of 2007, and a girl on my floor, I lived in this apartment. I was over at her apartment, and on her coffee table, she had this little book, and the title was Skinny Bitch. And I got so mad. I was like, that's what's wrong with this world. And she, to her credit, you know, I got reactive when I saw that. And she's like, it's actually a book. It's worth a read. She's like, the title is very misleading. It's really about a healthier way to live. And I was like, all right, okay. She kind of regulated me, and I thought, all right, I'll give this book a go. And I remember in my crappy little apartment in West Hollywood being in the bathtub with like a mask on, reading this book and just sobbing, like I remember that so vividly because it was a clay mask and the tears just streaked all the way through it. And I was reading about the treatment of these animals and the factory farms and the fear that they all can feel. And like something in me in that divine timing just woke up. I woke up, Chrissy. It was like something I always knew to be true. It was like, all right, it's time. It's time that this rises to the surface. And I'd never been like a Lent practicing person. Uh, but it was like Lent was happening that next week. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. I am going to give up animal products for Lent. And here we are 18 years later,
That's
and
amazing. Yeah.
it made it was so beautifully and divinely timed for me in LA because so many people got that mindset. It wasn't Nashville in 2007 with like not one vegan restaurant around and people like shaming me because of that or trying to educate me and I'm like you don't know, actually you're wrong. Like actually what you've been told about the food pyramid is not accurate, and like that's not the only way that we need protein and people need to calm down about how much animal protein. Anyway, it was so like all the vegan restaurants in LA, there were so many things to choose from, like the hot bar at Whole Foods. I mean, everything at Trader Joe's. And then I got these cookbooks by Sarah Kramer, and I still use the three of them that I have. And it was like so fun to challenge myself also with like old recipes and be like, okay, how can I veganize this? How can I use flaxseed, ground flaxseed in water to make an egg substitute or applesauce? And what the heck is jackfruit? And like let's play with that. It really woke up something in me. And like full transparency, I mean, I had been the person that like made fun of vegetarians before, like
Really?
didn't even know what a vegan was. Yeah, I'm like, oh come on, like God put the animals on the planet. It's like, and I forgive that ignorant part of my past. I just didn't know any better, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I mean, that's true for all of us. And there are good reasons that we don't know any better because we weren't told. And not only that, we were often told the polar opposite. We were told things that were incorrect. They were wrong. And then we're trained and indoctrinated to shut down our compassion and our critical thinking every time we sit down to eat. So yeah. So
Yeah.
you make it all sound very, very easy and very spontaneous. So was it really just that quick and easy for you?
Yeah, I mean, you read and you educate yourself, and a documentary is hard for me because I already have the visual in my head. Um, but just when something like truly clicks and wakes up, I can't, I can't do meat. I mean, I just and dairy and like I just. And again, like being in LA made it easy. And I will say at the time, I would come home and my now former mother-in-law um, was very supportive and would like have a shelf in the refrigerator just for me with like all vegan things. And she would cook vegan for me. I mean, her daughter was vegetarian, but she was curious and like made it easier when I would come home. That's when it wouldn't be hard because it wasn't hard. It would because I would kind of like dig my heels in a bit even more when I would get home and wanting to educate people. And sometimes, in the beginning, it was from a bit of an aggressive place. Like, do you know what you're putting in your body? Do you know the pain that creature went through? Um, I don't do that anymore. I have to trust that people are on their own paths, and I try to keep my side of the street clean. Um, but if anybody's ever curious, even a child, I will speak from my heart in the most, you know, gentle and gracious way.
Yeah, and I would say especially with a child because kids get it. Kids understand and kids want
Yeah.
it. And the lies that we tell children so much of the time in so many realms are really, the root of a lot of trouble that people experience later on. So I'm curious, yeah, well, for one, I'm curious, is your friend who had the Skinny Bitch book, was she vegan? Had she gone vegan, and is she still vegan?
No, no. I don't know where I don't, her name's Chris. We just kind of lost touch. But no, it didn't wake something up in her, you know? I mean, she would go to restaurants with me, but it wasn't like she wasn't like convicted like I was.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me just how the same things, the exact same things, whether it's a movie or a book or an experience, can affect us in so many different ways. Like, do you have any sense of why it was that book or just, the information it was conveying just resonated so deeply for you?
Oh, what a great question. I think it woke up something in me that I already knew to be true. And it was like giving me permission to go with already what was deep within and a part of who I was. I just wasn't acquainted with that part of myself yet. I think it was, like sometimes you read something. For me, another book that changed my life was Mary Magdalene Revealed. And like when I read some of that, it was like I was reading things for the first time, but my soul already knew it.
Mm.
It was like, yes. And that's what it was with Skinny Bitch and reading about the animals. I already knew all of it, but it just like deep within, like on a soul level, but it just brought it to the surface and was like, yes, Hayden, you knew this. Let's embody it.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
be that
literally.
change.
That's a great word for it because that's what we're doing. And that's already what we're doing is when we eat food, we incorporate it, we come to embody it. And, when we're eating animal products, we're embodying violence and suffering and pain. And
Yeah.
when we're, and when we're allowing our compassion to, just awaken and flourish, we make better choices. But that's so interesting. That makes total sense to me the way you're describing just this whole process. And other people have described it the same way, just in the sense that in some ways we already were vegan, but we didn't know that word, we didn't know what that meant. But once we discovered it, we came into who we already were, or just like the truest, best, version of ourselves. So it sounds like that's what was
Hmm.
happening for you. So were you at the time that
Hmm.
you went vegan? You were married at that time, or did that happen later?
Yes, I have an ex-husband and I have the love of my life now. But yes, that's when that was I got married for the first time when I was barely 25. So
Wow.
logic was just barely formed.
Yeah.
Not really. But yes.
And how did going vegan affect that relationship and your other personal relationships?
You know, I, I it didn't really affect anything. I mean, thankfully he was on board. I mean, he would still eat however he wanted when I didn't cook. I mean, I haven't, I mean, even when Brent, my husband, and I were dating, um, and he'd come over, I'm like, I will never cook meat. I'm not going to do milk. I'm not going to do, like, the only way I cook is vegan. Um, so you eat the whatever way you want. That is your journey, but just know, like, this is how I cook, you know? So and then personal in LA again, like it was so easy. Like the people, I mean, I was, most of my friends were artists and uh already just open and like already knew of the vegan restaurants. Like that was easy, it was sometimes when I would come back to Nashville that it would be a bit challenging. And, I remember a guy once like kind of being snarky about what was going to happen to my bones because of calcium deficiency. Um, and he was being silly and lighthearted, but I still remember it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, and now I know that he has like loves going to Avo, like a vegan restaurant here. Like I know that people evolve. But yeah, it was a bit challenging at first, and like especially when I would come home. I mean, again, it was Nashville in 2007, and there was not one vegan restaurant here. Not no,
That's
nothing.
amazing because I moved here in 2017 and I remember the very first morning that I was here and I had driven here from New York City with my vegan brother and we were looking for a place to go to brunch that morning and we thought what are the odds of finding a vegan friendly brunch place in Nashville, Tennessee, and we Googled vegan brunch Nashville, and lo and behold, there's an amazing restaurant called Gray's, just less than half a mile from
Oh,
my house. And so we went there, and
love
we both
it.
thought like, wow, that bodes pretty well. And I've been really lucky. There's so many
Hmm.
amazing restaurants. A few of my favorites unfortunately have closed, but still there are new ones
Yeah.
opening up all the time, and I've just been astounded at the amazing vegan community here. How much community were you able to find in LA? It sounds like being vegan was like very, very accepted, very, pretty commonplace. So did you connect with
Oh
other
yeah,
vegans?
and
Was that
like
important to you? Yeah.
yes, one of my dear friends, she and I are still dear friends, Amy. Um, she was vegan as well and has a huge heart for animals. And like every restaurant in LA, even in 2007, had a vegan option. It was just like it was easy, and the restaurants there were so delicious that even if people weren't vegan, they would still love the food. You
Right.
know, sometimes it was challenging if I had like an out of town visitor, if I took them to Cafe Gratitude, because it was just, I loved it. It's very my language. I don't know if you know about Cafe Gratitude.
I Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't know if I've been there. I feel like I have, but I
But
maybe
like
yeah.
everything on the menu is an affirmation. And
Okay.
so it's like very hippie. So you order like
Yeah.
I am grounded. And when they bring you your food, they're like, you are grounded. Like and
I have not
um,
been there. I would remember
and
that.
it oh God, Chrissy, you gotta go. Um and that was much more like earthy, like a lot of soaked nuts and things like that. Like I
Yeah.
don't think there
Sure.
was a tempeh or a tofu or a seitan there. Um but yeah, but that it was just so easy there. And thank goodness easier here now. Although when we do a vegan restaurant, we order in because we are parents of a almost 4.5-year-old born in the height of COVID. And you know, we're big homebodies. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to hear all about that, but I'm curious too, just like in terms of going vegan and what were some of the early things that you wish you'd known at the start, and I'm curious too just what your health was like. Had weight ever been an issue? Had you had any health concerns? You were still pretty young, so maybe not, but did you notice any differences physically when you went vegan?
no, I mean, honestly, I think maybe at the beginning, I gained a little weight, but that was just because it was a lot of pasta.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
doing like a lot of pastas and like, trying to like veganize southern dishes. And then you know, and now when I do anything like pasta forward, it's more of a spaghetti squash. I don't do that type of carb anymore because that carb makes me just feel heavy. So I like a cauliflower rice. I like again like a zoodle, or uh, like I said, spaghetti squash. But
What's a
no,
noodle?
but I
I don't know
will
what that is.
say, oh,
I
a
don't.
zoodle. It's when you like spiralize a zucchini
Oh, okay.
and it's
Cool.
become like
Yeah.
a zucchini
Yeah.
noodle is a zoodle.
Okay.
Um, uh, but I do remember like primary care doctor with blood work. They were like, "This is like this was like less than 10 years ago." He was like, "I've never seen some. I've literally in all my years of practice have never seen such healthy cholesterol in my life ever." And I'm like, "Well, it's the way I eat."
What can I say? Yeah. That,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about weight? Was that, I mean, I imagine being an actor in LA, image conscious, like was that something that just came easily to you, or had it been a concern?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully that was never an issue. Um, Again, like I said at the beginning, it's shocking that I wasn't like a morbidly obese child with all the crap that I ate. Um, but I've always been very active, and I'm a runner, and exercise every day, and I probably have done that since I was like 27. Um, So yeah, but just you know, not to get too, but like my body is very clean. Like I don't ever have like stomach issues ever, because of the way I eat. So
Yeah,
there's none of that. There's no like bad ecosystem going on because it's clockwork every day.
nice. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're a good cook, like you enjoy cooking and being creative in the kitchen.
I do. I love it. I love it. Like I said, I still have some like hard copy cookbooks, and there's like so many fun little vegan things I can also do in the crock pot. Um that is just like chickpeas, and I have a recipe for like kung pao chickpeas that I serve over cauliflower rice, or like an enchilada bake with just like diced tomatoes, black beans, and quinoa and taco seasoning. Like it's just there's just so many things that you can do. And this mushroom recipe that I have used for years. I remember my dear friend's husband in LA, when I had them over for dinner, he was very skeptical, and he took a bite of these little mushrooms I did with like an almond sauce, and I will never forget his eyes bulging out of his head and how delicious it was. And so I still do those. I literally do those once a week. Like I've got my little rotation.
Awesome.
So, and I've just discovered freezing tofu and then letting it thaw and then marinating it and then baking it, and it gives it like a different texture. It's so
Interesting.
fun.
Okay, I did not
Yeah.
know that. All right, I'm gonna have to get some of these recipes from you because they sound delicious. So what were you
Yeah.
doing work wise out in LA, and like what was the rest of your life like outside of what you're eating?
Yes. Well, I've been acting since I was 10. I took my first class when I was 10 years old. It's always been something that's just a part of who I am. I was also, you got to make money when you live in LA. Um, I was a receptionist at Chris McMillan's salon in Beverly Hills. Chris McMillan, one of the most creative hairdressers ever. He is famous for the Rachel, Jennifer Aniston's look on Friends. So met a lot of beautiful souls there, and then I was a personal assistant to a big actor and a personal assistant to a guy that insured restaurants and became dear friends, and went through a divorce out there, and also discovered a wonderful Episcopal like hippie service church there. And um yeah, I loved it. And then it was, I say that looking back, I loved it, but at the end of my time there, my spirit was screaming to get out. I never felt true peace there, um in my soul. And so I moved back to Nashville, which was a shock. I didn't think I would ever live here again. But
Really?
something in my heart, yeah, something in my heart just told me, like, it's Nashville. I mean, my family's here. This is where I was, except for my dad, who is one of my best friends. He is in North Carolina. But yeah, my spirit was just called back here in 2014, and it was with so much being filmed now in the Southeast. I knew that I didn't have to give up acting. It wasn't about that leaving LA. It was just time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And were you still married at that time?
no, 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 no. That ended in January of 2013.
Okay. Okay. So not that long
Yeah.
before you left LA.
Yeah, that ended January of 2013. And I came back in June of 2014
Okay.
on my birthday.
Oh, amazing. When's your birthday?
615. I'm a Nashville native with a Nashville area code
There
as
you
a
go.
birthday, so
There you
I
go.
have to be
Well,
here.
in fact, the protagonist of my novel, her name is Julia Jones, and in the book, her birthday is June 14th. So, day before you.
That's awesome. A Gemini.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Gemini. So, what was it like coming back to Nashville after all that time?
Well, I mean, so much has changed. But I mean, I would see that when I would come home for visits. It was, it was it was interesting. It was good, and it was part of my journey. And coming back, all of my friends that I had had my whole life, or at least since like high school, college, were of course excited to have me back. And they're all married with kids, and I'd come back, no kids, divorced, single. So that was a bit of an adjustment. And just trying to find new community and dating again, like with technology and texting and all that stuff, and how much it had changed. And I'm really aging myself right now. And then but reconnecting with some old friends. Like one of my buddies had like this kayaking group, and I moved back in June, and I made a lot of his friends, and I'd known him since high school, and he was not married, just a dear friend. And like finding like a little bit of a community in that, and like going canoeing and kayaking like most of the summer, and meeting like other artists that way. Just because again, I was in such a different place than all my friends that were
Yeah.
like moms, and like it's just a completely different stage of life. And then connecting with another buddy from high school, and like going to Bonnaroo for a few summers, and just like living basically my 20s in my 30s, because I didn't. And it was also so cool at Bonnaroo, like tons of vegan options there. Like every festival you go to, because there's like a lot of hippies. I mean, it was always like that at a fish show. Um, Even when I was in high school, there was always tofu and stuff. And I'm like, what is that? Um, but yeah, just like slowly finding my people and meeting my husband through Bumble in 2016. And that was a beautiful, slow, healthy, not toxic relationship. Like
So
first
it
one of
was
my life,
slow.
literally.
Was it love at first sight?
Oh
Did
yeah.
you know early on? So it was.
It was Yes, it was, but it was real love. And what I had known, what I thought was love, was like love bomb. And like toxic, because that's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was love.
Yeah, like the
And
adrenaline
then,
producing, dramatic.
yes.
Yeah, just love bomb, like you
And
said.
then, yes. And then there was one night, my husband and I were not, it was Halloween. We had been dating for like less than 6 months. And I tried to start a fight because that's what I knew how to do. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And he so gently, like, put his hands on my shoulders and he said, "Hey, we're not going to be that couple." And I was like, "Oh my God." And I thought and like he like regulated me and like saw me and like calmed me down. It was like, now that I have a child, it was like holding them when they're having a tantrum. And it's like, no, I'm here, I'm here, and we're gonna get through this. And it was like, and I say this and I tell this story in the most loving way, of the sense of this phrase. I felt, you know how to handle me, like in the most loving way. Like you can handle me. Like, this doesn't push you away. Like, you're staying calm and grounded. Like, I'm used to MF or matching me up here. Like, I am up here in my head and I want to fight, and I'm used to somebody meeting me. But Brent, it was like, and I mean, he's just such an amazing man. And for so long after my divorce, my prayer was, I pray to be the vibrational match for the highest partnership available to me. I pray to be the vibrational match for the highest partnership available to me. And I mean, I dated some after my divorce, obviously, but like, you know, it would just get loud, like, this isn't right, or this is toxic. We know this dance. We're not going to do this dance. And then there was like a long period of just me. I was just alone, which is what I needed. And then my childhood, my first friend ever in my life from when I was 4 years old, I still keep up with. And he was like, "You've got to get on Bumble." I was like, "I don't want to get on Bumble. Fine, I'll do it 1 week. That's it." And Brent was the first person I matched with, the only date I went on. And yeah, it was slow and kind and grounded. And I remember thinking at the beginning, like, does he even like me? Because it was so slow and I was just used to fast. But something in me was just like, just let it be. Just let it be. And when I start to spin out because I don't think he's interested, text my sister. I'm gonna text her and be like, I'm spinning out. I'm not gonna be like, "Hey, what you doing?" to Brent, to be like, "Knock knock, you still interested?" Just like let it be. So
That's beautiful. I mean, that's the sweetest story ever. How he calmed you down and wouldn't let you pick that fight. That's just, yeah, that's really,
yeah,
really moving. So I'm curious,
yeah.
because for a lot of especially vegan women out there, veganism and dating are such a challenging mix. And I've had a number of women on the show say pretty with some real certainty that being vegan is the reason that they're still single. How much did you lead with your veganism? How much did you talk about it, and how much of an obstacle was it for you?
I don't I don't know if it's ever been an obstacle for me, because it's it's just so part of who I am. And when I started dating again, I had already, I mean, again, I started dating again in 2013, and I had already been vegan for 6 years, and it was just like, and I, I let go of trying to convert people. It was more like, it became, attraction, not promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if anybody was curious, I would open up and talk about it. But like, you know, I don't think I ever went into somebody's home like I never went as far in dating until Brent to meet a family. But, but I did have men cook for me that I was dating, and they knew, they knew like this is the way I eat. And that, thank goodness, like that was never a problem. Like but again, that was in LA, and I guess they were used to it. But like, I had this one guy like make me this beautiful tofu dish with like black rice. I mean, and it was like I'll never forget the presentation. It was just that wasn't a problem. Like, and again, it's promotion, and it's attraction, not promotion. But like fast food has always been like a deal breaker. I'm like, I'm not, like, I can't be with somebody that's going to go into their body.
Right. I mean, I think that's what makes it really tricky for a lot of women. And I'm not excluding myself from this classification, but it's just even if we're not pushing our veganism, even if we're not trying to convert people either directly or indirectly, it's just such a turnoff when people,
Hmm.
when yes, there's eating fast food, but even just people just being willfully oblivious and willfully ignorant about this whole universe of suffering that's happening. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just a turnoff at the very least. And also, obviously when you're dating somebody, when you're in a relationship, there needs to be respect. And it's just very hard to have respect for people who
Hmm.
are participating in this sociopathic, so-called food system. So did those
Yeah.
issues come up for you? How did you navigate those with Brent? Because obviously it worked out. So somehow you figured out a path that worked for both of you. So what was that path?
Um, I mean, I think it was just like, again, like already knowing, and this already being a part of who I am. And so when he would come over, that would be the way that I would cook. Um, and he's good at trying things, even though we joke that he's plain Blaine. Last name is Blaine, plain Blaine, because he doesn't like too many. And then he's gotten a lot better about it now, but like didn't like too many flavors. Like I remember the one of the first things I made was like this mango, red pepper, black bean quinoa salad with like a spicy jalapeno dressing. And he was like, that's a lot of flavors. And the be and but yeah, but like, and the beautiful thing that I was hard at first for me, but so appreciative. You know, going off a bit here, but it's like the codependency is rampant in the South. People acting like they like one thing when they really don't. Just like smiling and bless your hearting it all. Um, And so I don't remember what I cooked, but I was like, "Do you like it?" And this when we were dating, and he was like, "It's not my favorite, but but I'm gonna eat it." And I'm like, "Oh God!" like inside I'm freaking out,
Yeah.
and it's like, but I so appreciate that because that's that's one of the reasons I love him so much, because he's honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I would so much prefer the honesty than him pretend that he loves it and really doesn't. And then
Yeah.
I so appreciate that. Um and I showed him oh, what was that documentary? I can't remember, but there was a cookbook that went with it and he was really into it.
Forks over
It's like this
knives.
firefighter man. No, it wasn't Forks Over Knives. It was
Oh,
like
the
the
engine two.
engine.
Engine two. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rip Esselstyn.
And I think,
Yeah, he's a badass.
yes, and his book, and like the sweet potato chili and like all the great things, and he's got like a food line.
Yep.
Um, but I think like Brent's curiosity and like seeing like, you know, a dude's dude embrace that. You know, not just, a guy that meditates and wears mala beads and has a man bun.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, Brent, that's not, that's not him. So, yeah, it just, I guess I'm just grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about when it came to, having a baby and you've got your little boy who has maybe the cutest name ever, Bowie?
Uh, Bowie, yes, I'll tell you about that in a minute, how that name came. But, like, I went with the Vanderbilt midwives. I really wanted to have a completely natural birth. Ended up having an emergency C-section, and that's fine.
Oh,
I got the intuitive hip when I was walking into the hospital. Um, I mean, I had a doula to be with me at the hospital. It was height of COVID. We had to walk into the hospital in masks. I had back labor. It felt like an elephant was on me. I projectile vomited. It was
oh,
horrible.
that sounds
Um,
miserable. Wow.
but oh my gosh. But thankfully, with the Vanderbilt midwives, like nobody gave me grief about my diet. Um, it's like I'm not changing the way I eat just because I'm growing a human, and they're actually benefiting from the way I eat
Yeah,
as I grow
exactly.
this
All the
human.
more reason not to change what you're eating. Yeah.
Exactly. And even like postpartum, which is just post birth. I for the longest time I thought postpartum it meant
Meant
depression,
depression.
because we always hear about postpartum depression.
Right, right.
Because I had a postpartum doula, which just means post birth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But even and she my postpartum doula was not vegan, but very respectful of my veganism, and she brought me like warm, nourishing foods. That was part of my plan with her. And it was all like acorn squash and lentils and like dates with cashew butter. I mean, the most delicious food I have ever had in my life. And like sweets and treats from like Sunflower Bakehouse. Um, and because you lose so much blood, and there's so much in like a natural holistic way. um there's so much pushed about bone broth,
Right.
how that's really good to restore your blood, and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
We can do veggie broth. You can put the mushrooms in it, like all the different, like all the freaking magical powers of mushrooms. Are you kidding me?
Exactly. Yeah,
like
yeah.
like like the local company Henosis, like all their tinctures of their lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, like all the magical mushrooms, just like the healing properties in those, not to mention how delicious they are. But so all of that, and then like, not that this was a goal, but like it, because it wasn't. It really wasn't, because I leaned into the fourth trimester, and the opposite of the bounce back culture of mothers of after you give birth, you got to get everything done and you got to eat salads and drink smoothies. And it's like, no, I am going to be with my baby 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days around the bed. Thank God, honestly, it was COVID because I didn't have to take care of anybody. There were no visitors that could come, and like, and the C-section, I couldn't go downstairs and see the laundry
Mm.
and see the dishes in the sink. I was just with Bowie. Um, but then like because of the way I eat, when I did have the 6 week checkup, I mean, I'm not interested in a scale and at this point in my life, like me getting on a scale and seeing a number is going to do more damage either way than it is. I don't want to know. That's just the God's honest truth. But I remember the midwife being after at my 6 week appointment was like shocked at how much weight I had dropped. And she was like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "I don't want to know. Like, I don't need to know a number. I don't know how heavy I was at the end. I felt like I was the marshmallow woman. I had never been that big in my life, and I hate it. I hated being pregnant. Um, but that was, but I was eating all this like nourishing food, and it still fell away. And I was nursing. I nursed Bowie till he was almost 3 years old. Um, but yeah, that was also it's just like a big part of it. And I just feel like having your heart crack open for animals, like you're gonna you're just gonna be a more loving mother. you know?
That's really sweet. That makes total sense to me. I'm not a mother, but that makes total sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. And now he's 4.5, so he's eating. He's past breastfeeding. He's eating. How much do you talk to him about veganism? How much does he know? And are you raising him vegan, or how are you navigating that experience?
It's tricky. It's tricky. He knows that mommy does not eat meat, and mommy doesn't eat cheese, and mommy doesn't eat specific types of yogurt. Um, Bowie really isn't interested in meats. He occasionally has meat. Uh, it's hard, and I want to give him autonomy and the power to choose, and I also want to educate him. And he is already such an empath. And if he sees a cartoon crying, he will cry. Um, and I know that when that time comes to have the, I don't, I don't want to put too much on his heart at such a young age. I feel like there's already so much pain. And I will say, I listened to Rick Rubin's podcast with Joaquin Phoenix, and Joaquin Phoenix talked about when he and his brothers became vegan, and it was seeing a fish get stunned. And they saw this when they were kids, and they saw that, and they made that conscious decision themselves. They were not raised that way. I mean, they were raised by hippies, but like that, and it just never left them. And not that I want something like that for Bowie, but maybe, I don't know. I don't cook meat for him. Um, I don't really buy eggs ever. Um, most of the yogurt he eats is vegan. Uh, and like, like we do a lot of, he loves, I mean, he's a very much a fruit bat kid. Like he loves fruit. He loves cucumbers and hummus. And I get the pesto from Trader Joe's and do it in a tortilla. Um, he loves the whatever the chickpea pasta is. with the pesto or a red sauce and earth balance. And like I do, he is a mostly vegan kid. Um, and that is where I am. So,
And then the non-vegan food, where does that come from? Is that just him hanging out with friends, or is that Brent? It sounds like Brent maybe is mostly vegan around the house, or how? Where is he on his?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brent is yes, vegan at home.
Mhm.
Um, they have pizza day at Bowie School on Friday, and I just we tried a few Fridays, and with him bringing his lunch, and like the teachers told me he just like kind of sat there and like looked at everyone else, and he was like 2 and didn't touch his food and was kind of sad, and I'm like, I just can't do that. If he wants to have a bite of the if he wants to have some cheese pizza, it's okay. You know, like it's not what I'm going to put in my body, but I don't want him to feel ostracized. I just I don't want to do that to him. There again, like I mean, I'm with my little empath, I'm like terrified that anybody's ever going to bully him, you know? And like if when he comes home and he's told me that somebody said they didn't want to play with him or be his friend, this has happened already. And he's only in school 3 days a week. Like it I'm an empath, and it breaks my heart. And then, you know, I'm I'm seeing little Hayden in him. I'm seeing my inner child in my child. And I'm trying to, and in my journey in my own recovery in life, I'm reparenting my inner child now. And I'm also doing it with my own child. Sorry, I don't mean to go off on a tangent with your question. It's just like, you know, it's just one thing at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously there's no easy answer. If there were, everybody would be doing it and it would be working seamlessly. So
Yeah.
yeah. No, but I mean,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. Clearly you're showing up for him as well as just in the world as your compassionate, empathetic, vegan self. And that in itself is more informative and more, more instructive than I think anything you could tell him or, say to him. So, um, I'm confident it will all work out, but I
Yeah.
feel for you with the challenges of all those dynamics, the social pressures and the obviously you can't protect him from everything, but of course your instinct is to want to and try to. So yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, like, and it's, you know, it's hard when it comes to sugar. And like he saw one of his friends like having an icy, and their little sister having an icy, and and I'm like, and he was so sad. But I'm like, I'm sorry, sweetie, we don't do that. I mean, there are, and I know that's sugar. That's not even, but it's like there's, and I will allow like organic apple juice at home sometimes, but I'm really trying to focus on, you know, it is water that we put in our bodies, and the milk that he has is a pea protein. Like that
right,
is what we do. And like, you know, every once in a while he gets a special drink, and that's sparkly water. You know, like, but I don't I like no sodas, like no ices, like I just there's just some things I'm like, I know we will not be doing that.
right, right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this because I know it's so deeply personal, and I think people will just really appreciate just your honesty about the joys and the challenges too of raising a compassionate, conscious little boy in this world,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has a lot of room to
Yeah.
grow and evolve with regard to those very things. So I've got just a couple more
Yeah.
questions I would love to ask.
Mhm.
For one, how would you say that you've evolved as a vegan? From that day in 2007 when you picked up the book to where you are today.
Um, I would honestly say I don't police other people anymore. You know, it's more just it's just who I am. I mean, it's been 18 years. You know, like that's just I can't believe it's been that long. I mean, that's an adult. My veganism
True.
is now an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's just like just embodying it completely and like not apologizing for it ever. You know, like when like we went over to our we go to a really rad church here in Nashville, Sparrow Day, and we uh we had dinner over at our minister's house in December or in November, and you know, I didn't apologize when they were like, you know, do you have any restrictions? I'm like, yeah, I'm vegan. Well, no, they knew that because I'd had them come over here. They had come over here for dinner before, but it's like I'm not like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll bring my own thing. It's like, you know, we're grown-ups, and it's not that hard. And they made a lovely lentil soup and salad and bread, and it was wonderful. And yeah, it just like yeah, just not apologizing for it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I don't even like that question. Like, do you have any restrictions? Like, no, it's not a restriction when I
Right.
eat actual food. Like,
Right.
yeah,
Oh yeah. When people are like, "Oh, you can't eat dairy or meat." I'm like,
right.
"No, I choose not to
I
eat dairy
choose
or
not to.
meat."
Yes, yes. Or when they equate
And
veganism. Yeah.
I can't because I can't, but not like
Right,
you
right,
can't. You know,
right,
it's
right.
like no, my
Just like,
heart
yeah.
absolutely won't let me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're on the same page there. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. It's been so interesting chatting with you and just hearing more about this deeply personal journey. And, thank you just for bringing that love to the world because it's clear that's what you're doing. And, that that's the only way. That's the only way to carry this message.
Yeah.
So, the final question, which I ask all my guests, is there a particular word that for you sums up what being vegan is all about?
Compassion. Compassion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense, and it's clear that you've got compassion, obviously for the animals, but also for the previous self, your younger self who just didn't know, who knew on some level but didn't know
Mhm.
on other levels and eventually found her way. So I think that's a huge
Mhm.
piece of this journey too is, we're it's not that we're bad people trying to get good, but we're just learning and growing and getting better all the time. So,
Yeah.
well, again, thank you so much for joining the Vegan Posse. And we close every episode by taking 30 seconds of silence for all the suffering animals, human and non human, who desire, as we all do, safety, happiness, and the freedom to live out their lives without interference. So, Hayden, I invite you to join me in 30 seconds of silence for the animals, and we'll conclude with the sound of the bell. Thank you, Hayden, and thank you, Posse. See you next time. Until then, stay strong
Thank
and stay
you.
clear.